I've always hated silence, the kind that feels thick, like it's pressing against your eardrums, waiting to be shattered. But that night, I would have given anything for silence. It started after my father died. I inherited his old Victorian house on the edge of a nowhere town in Maine. The house, built in 1883, was 3 stories of creaking floors and drafty windows. The first time I saw her, I thought I was dreaming. I rolled over in bed, and that's when I saw her, standing at the foot of the bed. She was barefoot. Her long black hair clung wetly to her cheeks, and her white dress was soaked, clinging to her thin frame. Her face was obscured by her hair, but I swear I could feel her eyes on me. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, could barely breathe. Then, in a split second, she was gone. I convinced myself I'd imagined it, a half-waking hallucination from stress and grief. I just laid there, staring into the dark, waiting to hear the floorboards creak again, but they didn't. Not that night. The next day, I noticed puddles, small ones, right at the bottom of the stairs, another in the upstairs hallway, but the roof wasn't leaking, and I hadn't spilled anything. Then I found the dress. It was in the attic, an old white nightgown folded neatly inside a cedar trunk. It reeked of mildew and salt water. When I touched it, it was damp. Not just old house damp, fresh damp, like it had just been pulled out of a lake. I left it in the trunk, slammed the lid. I should have burned the damn thing. That night, I heard her humming. It was a low, tuneless sound, like a child trying to mimic a lullaby. It echoed through the house, soft at first, then louder, rising and falling in the pitch-black air. I bolted upright in bed and grabbed the flashlight I kept beside me. The floor outside my room was wet again. I followed the trail footprints this time, bare and narrow, leading down the stairs and into the parlor. The humming stopped as I entered. The room was empty. I packed a bag that night and drove 3 towns over to stay in a motel, slept with the lights on and the television blaring. But I knew I had to go back. The house needed to be sold, emptied, cleansed of whatever was haunting it or me. I returned 2 days later. In the daylight, everything felt normal, rational, like I could explain it all away. Until I found the photograph. It had slipped behind a bookshelf, a black and white image, brittle with age. In it, my great-grandfather stood on the front porch of the house, stern-faced, a pipe in hand, and beside him, barefoot, in a long white dress, stood a woman. Her face was blurred, maybe from motion, maybe from damage, but something about her posture chilled me. She was turned slightly toward him, but her hands were clenched at her sides. I flipped the photo. On the back, written in faded ink, Margaret, 1902, drowned in the pond, buried out back. He lied. I felt sick. I didn't know who Margaret was. No one in the family ever mentioned her. No stories, no headstones in the yard, nothing. But now I had a name, a clue. That night, I sat on the back porch. There was a small, overgrown pond at the back of the property, one I'd always avoided. My father said it wasn't safe, that it sucked people in like quicksand. I never questioned it. Now I wondered what or who was really down there. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember waking up to the sound of sobbing. It came from the pond, soft at first, then ragged and choked with water. I grabbed a flashlight and followed the sound through the weeds. There she was, kneeling at the edge of the water, her dress floating around her like petals. "Margaret?" I whispered, barely able to say her name. She stopped, straightened, turned, but her face was wrong. It wasn't the blur of the photograph, it was more like her skin had melted, bloated and pale, waterlogged and tearing at the edges. Her eyes were wide and black, sunken deep in her skull, and when she opened her mouth, a torrent of water spilled out. I ran. Branches slashed at my face. I didn't look back. I didn't stop until I was inside the house with every door locked. I staggered to the bathroom, coughing up mouthfuls of brackish liquid that stank of algae and decay. My lungs burned. My nose bled. And scrawled in the mirror, in dripping black letters, were 4 words: "He lied about me." I left that morning. Didn't pack. Didn't shower. Just drove until my hands stopped shaking. I found an old historian in Bangor who knew the house. He told me Margaret was a maid, worked for my great-grandfather, got pregnant. He didn't want scandal, so he took care of it. Told the town she'd run off, buried her in secret. The pond became her grave. That was over a century ago, but she's still there, waiting. I bought the house because I wanted to disappear. It sat on the edge of a dying town called Ash Hollow. The roof sagged, the shutters hung crooked, and the trees out back leaned in like they were whispering secrets. It was dirt cheap. No one else bid on it. That should have been my first warning. After my divorce, I walked away from the life I built and burned the rest. I wanted silence, solitude, no people, no past, just peace. The first few nights were calm. If you ignored the groaning pipes and creaking floors, I slept on a mattress on the living room floor while I fixed the upstairs. But on the 4th night, I heard the footsteps. They started around midnight, soft, deliberate, on the floor above me. I lay still, eyes wide, waiting to hear them again. Another slow, dragging step, then silence. I thought it was the house settling, old wood shifts. But the next night, the footsteps returned, closer, louder, followed by something worse, whispers. I could barely hear them, but they were there. A voice, maybe 2, a woman's voice, repeating the same phrase over and over. I couldn't make out the words, but I felt them wet and cold in my ears, like someone whispering straight into my brain. On the 7th night, I went into the attic. It was freezing up there, breath steam visible despite the heat of summer. Cobwebs choked the rafters. The air smelled of mildew and something sweet, like spoiled roses. I moved aside a stack of old boxes and saw it, a loose floorboard. I pried it up and found a small velvet box, decayed but intact. Inside was a silver ring, tarnished to black, and a folded letter sealed in brittle wax. It was addressed to Eleanor Winthrop. "Dearest Eleanor, forgive me. I cannot go through with it. Your love is too much. It clings like fog and smothers like fire. I'm leaving Ash Hollow. By the time you read this, I'll be in Boston. Please, don't follow me. R." The date was the 31st of October, 1870. I stared at the signature for a long time. R, just the one letter, but I could feel his shame bleeding off the page. I placed the ring and letter back in the box and closed it. That night, I dreamed of her. She stood at the edge of the woods, drenched in rain, wearing a wedding dress mottled with dirt. Her veil was torn. Her hands were black, like they'd been in the ground too long. She didn't speak, just raised one arm and pointed at me. I woke up gasping. The next morning, I went into town to ask about the name Eleanor Winthrop. The librarian, an old woman with sad eyes, went still. "They buried her in the forest," she said, "after they found her body hanging in her wedding dress. The groom ran, the coward. She waited at the altar for hours before wandering off. No one ever claimed her. No headstone." I went back to the attic. I don't know why. I took the ring out again. It was ice cold. I slid it onto my finger. The moment I did, something shifted in the house. The air grew heavier, The lights flickered. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement, just a flicker of white lace slipping down the hallway. I couldn't take it off. I tried soap, oil, even pliers. Nothing worked. The skin around it began to blister. It pulsed with heat when I touched it. That's when the dreams became nightmares. In them, I stood in a rotted chapel. The pews were full of corpses in wedding attire, skin sloughing off their faces, jaws open in silent hymns. And at the end of the aisle, Eleanor. Her veil hid her face. Her dress dragged behind her, stained with blood and mud. She reached for me, and I couldn't move.
You said you'd love me forever.
Her voice like wind through bone. When I woke, the house became wrong. Mirrors reflected her face, not mine. The clock stopped. I'd find muddy footprints leading from the front door to my bed. And every night, Eleanor appeared closer, sometimes at the stairs, sometimes behind me in the mirror. Once, I saw her standing above me as I slept, veil brushing my face. I tried to leave, but no matter how far I walked, I came back to the same rotting porch, the same house, the same forest pressing in like teeth. Then I found the second letter. It was in the velvet box, though I swear it hadn't been there before. Written in elegant, decayed script, "My love, you came back. You are wearing our ring. Our vows bind us beyond death. The ceremony awaits. The guests are arriving, and this time, we will be together forever. Forever yours, Eleanor." My nightmares continue. The chapel, the altar, the priest with rotted eyes and a voice like soil, the guests, their jaws clicking in delight, and Eleanor, her face half-eaten, veil lifted, mouth stretched in a smile no human should wear. "You may now kiss the bride," the priest says. And I do, because I can't stop myself. The ring, our ring, burns into my finger. I can feel my love for her growing, and I know that one day soon, we will be together forever. I should have burned that damned thing the moment I found it. It started 2 weeks ago when I moved into my grandfather's farmhouse after he passed. The place stood at the edge of the woods, surrounded by pines and silence. I hadn't been there since I was a boy. I remembered dusty books, cracked leather chairs, and pipe smoke. I didn't remember the attic. I found the key in the back of his desk, wrapped in yellowed newspaper and tied with twine. The key was cold, heavy. The moment I touched it, I felt it like a breath on my neck. The attic door groaned open. Dust spiraled in the light. Among the clutter, something stood out. A white dress. It hung on a wooden hanger nailed to the far wall, untouched by time. No dust, no yellowing. It shimmered slightly, like silk mixed with spiderweb. That night, I dreamed of a woman. She stood in the field, barefoot, glowing under the moon. A veil hid her face. She didn't speak, didn't move, just stared. I woke with a taste of earth in my mouth. I blamed stress or the grief of losing my grandfather, but it got worse. The next night, footsteps overhead, slow, deliberate, pacing in the attic. I grabbed my bat and climbed the stairs. I put the key in the lock, turned it, and opened the door. The footsteps stopped. The dress was still there but wet, dripping onto the floor. I slammed the door shut and left quickly. In the morning, the puddle was gone, but the floor was stained dark where the water had been. The next night, I dreamed she was closer. No veil this time. I could see the hollow sockets of her eyes, pale skin stretched too tight, her mouth opened wide, howling like wind through trees. I woke outside in the field, barefoot, pajamas soaked, mud on my feet. I tried to leave, but the truck wouldn't start. The lights in the house stopped working and I had to light a candle. That night, she stood at the top of the stairs, head twisted, skin torn, dress still dripping. She took one step and the candle blew out. I woke in the attic. The dress was gone. Scratch marks covered the walls, deep, human-sized. I began losing time. I'd blink and find myself in the cellar. Then I'd blink again and find myself digging outside with my bare hands. The dress followed me, sometimes on a chair, sometimes a doorknob, always wet, dripping with a rhythmic thud, thud, thud. I tried to burn it. I wrapped it in newspaper, lit the fireplace and threw it in, but it didn't catch. I poured on lighter fluid and it screamed, really screamed, like a woman burning alive. I think I must have passed out because when I came to, the fire was dead. The dress was gone and I was back in bed. The pillow beside me was soaked and she was sat at the foot of the bed, watching me. She mouthed a name.
Clara.
I searched my grandfather's journals, found one photo of him with a woman in a white dress. Her eyes looked wrong, even in the picture. On the back, words were written. I told her I'd never let her go, not even in death. I don't know what he did. A ritual, a curse, but now she's waiting for me. Last night I woke choking, mouth full of water, floor slick, walls dripping. She was stood in the doorway, arm outstretched with her finger beckoning, inviting me to join her. The landline rang. The voice was garbled, like underwater speech, but I understood one word.
Come.
She's always behind me now. I see her in mirrors, hear her whisper in the walls. I think I'm going to put the dress on. I think that's what she wants. And once I do, I won't be afraid. I won't leave. I'll be hers. Forever. They say you only see her when your soul's already halfway to hell. I used to laugh at that. Now, I pray no one ever walks the path I did, especially after midnight, especially in Hollow Pines. It began the night I drove back from my brother's wedding. I took the long way home through the mountain, and the winding road through Hollow Pines felt like a good place to clear my head. I had one whiskey too many at the reception, but I was far from drunk, just tired. Tired of smiling, tired of pretending I was happy for everyone else. I was halfway through the forest when I saw her. At first, I thought it was a deer crossing. I slowed, squinting at the mist that hovered low across the road. Then I saw the figure, a woman, standing at the edge of the trees. She wore a long white dress that glowed faintly in the moonlight. Her hair hung in damp strands around her pale face. I couldn't make out her eyes, but I knew she was looking straight at me. I rolled to a stop. Instinct told me to keep driving, but something, guilt, curiosity, maybe just loneliness, made me put the car in park and step out. "Miss, you okay?" I called. She didn't move. I took a few steps closer, the crunch of gravel under my boots the only sound in the night. Still, she stood like a statue, that dress hanging limp and old, like it had been worn for 100 years. "Do you need help?" She raised her arm and pointed deeper into the forest. "Nope," I whispered, backing up. But the road behind me was gone. I mean it, gone. No lights, no road, just void. I turned back to her. Now she was closer, 10 feet away. I swear to God she hadn't taken a step. Her mouth hung open, but no sound came out. Her skin, it wasn't skin. It was ash, cracked and flaking like old paint. Her fingers were long and thin, bones stretching beneath torn flesh. I bolted to the car, slammed the door, locked it. My hands were shaking as I shoved the key into the ignition. The engine sputtered, then died. I turned it again, Nothing. I hit the horn, but it didn't make a sound. My headlights flickered, then dimmed until they faded completely, swallowed by the dark. I looked up. She was standing just outside the driver's window. Her mouth opened wider now, impossibly wide. I could see something writhing in her throat, not a tongue, but a black, living mass. Her eyes were pits, totally empty. Then she screamed. Except it wasn't a scream. It was a roar, a hurricane of agony that tore through the air and into my bones. My ears rang, my vision blurred. I screamed back a pitiful, human scream and shoved the door open, hitting her with it, and I ran for my life. Branches tore at my arms and face. The trees seemed to move, twisting and narrowing the path no matter which way I turned. I stumbled, fell, got back up. I didn't look behind me. I couldn't. In the distance, I could see a cabin, half rotten, barely standing, but it had light, a lantern hanging from a nail outside the door. I didn't knock. I kicked the door in and slammed it shut behind me, bolting the rusted lock. Inside was dust and silence. A fireplace long dead, a table with 3 chairs, and a rocking chair in the corner. I leaned against the door, panting. That's when I heard it. The creaking, slow and rhythmic. She was sitting in the rocking chair. Her arms cradled something small and gray. At first, I thought it was a bundle of rags. Then, I saw the tiny foot, the skeletal toes. No, what do you want? She lifted her head and she smiled. A slow, evil smile. I blacked out. I woke up in my apartment. My car was outside, scratched, mud-smeared, but intact. My clothes were clean. My phone, fully charged, showed the time. 9:06 a.m. No missed calls. No police at my door. No blood. I told myself it had been a dream. But every night since, I hear her. She whispers through the walls. She hums a lullaby in my closet. I find water pooling around my bed, muddy footprints on my hardwood floor, and every mirror in my apartment shows her standing behind me. I tried moving, burning sage, seeing a priest. Nothing worked. She's always there, waiting. I started researching. Found old newspaper clippings from the 1920s. A woman in Hollow Pines, name unknown. A widow whose baby drowned in the lake near the edge of the forest. They say she went mad. That she walked into the woods wearing a white dress and never came out. Locals say if she shows you her child, it's already too late. If you see her smile, your soul is hers. It's been 3 weeks. I don't sleep. I barely eat. I keep the lights on, but shadows still move. Last night, I saw her in the mirror again, only this time I was holding the child, and when it opened its eyes, it looked just like me.